Hello,
Fantastic.
everybody. Welcome to another Sales Hacker webinar. Thank you for hanging out with us for the next 45 minutes to an hour or so. I know most of us are still in lockdown, so it's always nice to get a little like human to human interaction.
Mhm.
I'm personally very tired of hanging out with my dog. That's all I'm living with right now. So I'm stoked to be chatting with Devin Reed today, someone I personally look up to. I've learned a ton from him. If you're not following him on LinkedIn, I highly recommend like right now, opening up your LinkedIn, giving him a follow. He posts a ton of content that helps me level up my game. It'll probably help you level up your game if you're in sales, and you probably are because you're here. Devin, how's it going today, man?
Thank you. Thanks for the kind words, Alex. I really appreciate it. And I hope my dog is also not as tired of me as I may or may not be of him. We've gone a lot of walks. But I'm good, man. Good. Feeling fresh after a 4-day weekend. Gong was nice enough to give us Friday off. So got an extra day at the beach. Don't worry, I was social distanced. It was very far away. There wasn't actually anyone within like 30 feet, which was perfect. So I'm feeling pretty good, man.
Yeah, my girlfriend and I went on Devin and I were talking just previously. I actually broke the social distancing norms. So, don't crucify me, everyone in chat. But I went hiking this weekend for the first time in like 3 months. It was amazing. It was like 90 degrees outside. Had a lot of fun. I hope everyone's feeling refreshed on the webinar today, ready to learn some 3 techniques to transform your deal execution. That's what we're talking about today. I'm not going to spoil what the 3 techniques are, but I'm personally very stoked. I got a behind the scenes view. um, it's going to be good stuff. So before we dive into the content, as usual, some housekeeping items. It helps Devin and I a ton if everyone in chat would hop into chat right now. Everyone on the webinar would hop into chat. There should be an icon at the bottom of your screen. Open it up. Let us know where you're joining from, what company you work for, your title. We can kind of curate the content so it's more relevant to your role. It really gives us, a better chance at doing that. Also, if you have any questions along the way on these Sales Hacker webinars, we really try to have it be like community led. It's much more valuable for you guys on the line right now. So if you have any questions, we'll try to answer them live as we're going. So open up that Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, throw them in there. I'll be in the background kind of moderating and surfacing those questions as we go. All right, Devin, I think we should jump right into it. Looks like chat is blowing up. We have people from, looks like all over, a couple people from Ohio, sales directors, managing directors. What's up, Rob? Rob Matheson. I think I've seen you in here before. Carrie Hawes. Boom. Stoked to have you all here today. Hope you guys find this valuable. Let's jump into it.
Sure. And yeah, shout out to everybody that made some time today. I hope we'll make it worthwhile, but I'm confident we will. For those who maybe don't know me or Gong, my name is Devin Reed. I'm the head of content strategy over at Gong. I joined Gong after about 4 or 5 years of sales experience as their second sales hire. So back when we were about 40 people in the whole company, I was on the sales team for 2 years, started the mid-market team with one of my colleagues to kind of start moving up market and build out those playbooks. And then about a year ago, jumped into the marketing side of things so I can do some of our cutting edge research that you'll see today, share some of our content marketing as well as our email marketing and some fun presentations like we'll check out. So that's just a little bit about me, and you'll hear a lot of my story as well as a salesperson. I'm sure you can relate. And so today we're going to cover 3 techniques to transform your deal execution. All of this stuff is backed by data. I'll dive into that right when we get to the data itself. But before we do, I'm going to put you on the shot clock a little bit. No pressure. I know we just came off a long weekend. I don't want you to get scared here, but I'm a big basketball fan and I haven't gotten any basketball in a few months. So I decided to bring it to the presentation. And so what I'd like you to do is take about 30 seconds starting now and start to think about the best deal that you've ever closed. That could be the largest deal you've ever closed. I know that's salespeople. That's the first thing we go to. It was the biggest one we took down. But I want you to think about the best deal. And then more specifically, what about that deal made it so great? What was the X factor, right? And some examples in the past have been, we beat out a competitor. I cold called the CEO, right? Anything like that. I just want you to think about for the next 20 more seconds or so, maybe 10. The slide doesn't change, by the way. It's a static shot clock, but in a moment here, we'll get to those answers. And if you want, you can go ahead and put them in the chat. We have a chat option. So if you want to share, it'd be great to see what you guys think. What was that X factor? You could use like some Jeopardy music or like the shot. I don't know if there's no shot clock music, but you know, some sort of air horn.
Looks like
All right,
Ron
put it in
J.
the chat. Oh yeah,
Ron
go
J
ahead.
says value given and respect and admiration from the client. Yes, totally.
Love that. Love when you get to that inner circle. We'll talk about that a little bit. Any other good ones, Alex?
Whole exec team bought in. Yep, a little multi-threading there.
Yeah. Someone's ahead of the game. I like it. All right.
Best sales, I made it via taking a very high risk because I live taking risks. You and me both, Terry. I love it.
Risk taker. I say I'm not a big gambler, but I will always bet on myself. All right. We'll get into a little bit of story time here. So hold on to those. I can't see them, but Alex is going through them, and we'll get back to those answers in a second here. And so I'll tell you guys about one of my best deals. And it was a couple years ago. I was selling to a VP of sales. And have you ever hung up a discovery call? Like you had your discovery call and you hang it up and you're just like, man, I nailed that. Like this deal is going to go somewhere. Like this deal's got legs. Yeah, that was me. And so I was feeling really good about it because, you know, she's at Power. She's kind of saw the vision at an early place. And so we had some time a few days later to have a demo. So we get on the demo, firing on all cylinders, right? She sees the vision of the company, the problem that we solve. She started seeing use cases for other teams as well. So my deal is getting larger and larger as we talk. And, you know, by the end of that call, I'm feeling really good because I've got, you know, if you guys are familiar with Bant, I've got all my check boxes feeling pretty good, right? So she had budget. There was a line item existing for this product already. She was the VP, so I was at authority. Clear need, and timing was good. No vacations, luckily. Not like today, different scenario for no vacation. Just didn't happen to have any vacations teed up. And so I go into my Monday pipeline review with my whole team the following week. And I'm feeling really good, right? And you guys know the drill. Managers at the head of the table, going around the table and talking about, you know, what is your best case? What's your most likely? What are your commits? Everyone does their thing, and then it's my turn. And manager says, Devin, what do you got? And I said, 160K for the month. Book it, done deal. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, yeah, man, I'm feeling good. Like, let me explain this deal to you. And this is how I was feeling. I'm like doing the money dance. Like I was feeling myself in every way, shape, and form. And I was like, I got the decision maker. I've got need. I got budget. I've got all of my things tied up. Let's jump to the next slide. I know it's tough to look at that guy and take anything seriously. And so everything's looking good. And of course, you know, he started to poke some holes, you know, asking some questions. And I'm like, no, I'm good on all angles. He said, okay. So he lets me off the hook. You know, of course, asking for daily, if not hourly updates after the meeting. Want to make sure the deal's still going well. And so I had a pricing call with my champion, my VP, my prospect, a couple of days later. So, you know, it's morning of, you know, I'm thinking about it. And I got an email a few hours before the meeting saying, hey, Devin, can we meet same time next week? I'm taking my family for a ski trip. We're going to leave the weekend a little early. Like, yeah, hey, no problem. Go do your thing. I totally get it. I snowboard all the time, knowing I've actually never snowboarded at that point in time. And so we resend the calendar invite, same time, same place next week. Fast forward a week, and you know, it's moments before the pricing call. Got my option A, my option B. I've got my gives, my gets. Like I'm in the zone. I'm ready to have this pricing conversation. And about 2 minutes before the meeting, my inbox lights up. There was a meeting declined. And then a couple of seconds later, the email. Hey, Devin, no need to meet today. Sorry to say we just signed a deal with your biggest competitor.
Oh no, crushing.
I was like, but I definitely said what I was thinking there. And, you know, my heart dropped. You know, my deal had just died in my arms. And I knew I was going to have a really tough conversation with my manager because I had so proudly and so confidently forecasted this deal. And so the question became, you know, what did my competitor do that I didn't, that persuaded my champion not just to leave our relationship, but to go sign with them, right? And what it comes down to is winnable deals are lost because the way that we approach deal execution is outdated and working against us. We'll get into what that means in a second here. Now, there are 3 techniques that I promised at the beginning, and these are the 3 things that we're going to focus on. And these are the 3 things that will transform the way you close and forecast. So 1 is multi-threading. I think we heard a couple examples in there. 2 was team selling. and 3 is email velocity. Now, 2 of these are probably known, relatively known to you, and the last one is probably the newer one, which is fine. And so if we go back to our answers from earlier, the thing that my X factor, the thing that I was missing was influence, right? I had one person won over, but I didn't have the team won over. I didn't have the company rallying around my deal, right? And so if anyone, I think we heard like, multi-threading was one, or someone said things like exec team buy-in, right? That's a big part of it. I'm curious if anyone else, Alex, did anyone see influence in there or something in that kind of ballpark?
Yeah, definitely in that ballpark. No one said the actual word influence, but we're getting a lot of like strong personal relationship, trust. This is from Joey Feinstein. We just started representing a major brand and asked one of our best customers to take on this brand. They agreed and was our largest commission in our company's history. Wow, congratulations. And it happened because of his strong relationship and that trust factor.
That's huge. That's awesome. And so what we're gonna cover today is just like that, right? Because there's 2 facets to influence. One is me and Alex could be best friends. He's my champion, and he wants to go get our deal done, whatever that is. But then there's the next level of influence, which is multiple people, right? And so we'll dive into that. I won't give too much away. But if you master these 3 techniques, you'll get 3 outcomes. One is you'll win influence with the DMC, it's decision-making committee, exec team. Next is you'll build trust and credibility, something Joey understands thoroughly. And then you'll forecast with precision. All right. So let's dive into the first one here. So the first one's multi-threading. Most folks have heard of this, maybe just in a different phrase. A lot of times sales leaders will say get wide on an account, similar concept. And so multi-threading is the process of building relationships with multiple stakeholders within your deal. Now, you're probably familiar with this. You've probably seen a stat like this, right? Which is, this is the most recent one I could find, which is 6 to 10 influencers are involved in any buying committee. This is B2B. And so this was the most recent one I found. I think most people will kind of nod their head like, yeah, of course, I want 6, I want 10, I'll take 20 if I can get them, right? But how many of us are, methodical about this? And like every single deal, I have this many people, and I'm also able to measure that.
Terry just chimed in. He just had a deal stall because he didn't have enough stakeholders yet. You're not alone, Terry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. And so what we wanted to figure out is how important is this, right? We all hear it growing up in sales, or, as you build your career through trial and error, is like, more people is better in your deal, but like how important is it really? And so what we do is at Gong, we have a team called Gong Labs, which I'm a part of. And we have some data scientists and researchers. And what we do is we take our client data that we anonymize. So if you're unfamiliar with Gong, we automatically capture all of our sales calls, emails, and meetings that people have when they sell. We transcribe it and we analyze it, start to show insights. Things like, here's how much Alex is talking on his discovery call, right? Here's how patient Devin is, all these little types of things and much, much more. That's just to set the table for Gong Lab. So we take that user data, anonymize it, and we start to do research and analysis and start to understand things like how does winning deals and losing deals differ in terms of the amount of buyers that are involved, right? So that's the first one. And we'll go through a few of them on today's call. And so here's the first bit of data here is we looked at, again, I think this was about 40,000 sales opportunities, and looked at how many people were involved. And what we found was that winning deals involve more people, which we all kind of knew, right? Kind of gut check could have told us that. But more specifically, they involve people earlier in their deal than losing deals. So let's walk through this real quick. So on the left-hand side, you see closed won in red. On the right, you'll see your closed lost deals. Now, both start at about one person, which makes sense, right? You get Alex on the line. If you're going to be my buyer today, Alex, all day, because I can see you. You get Alex on there, and he's like, this is interesting. If it's good, he'll continue on and hopefully get more people. Not always. Or that doesn't happen, right? And so what we saw is not only does it start here at one, but it triples for winning deals versus staying about the same. And if we continue all the way down to fifth call, right here it says 1.98. It's really opaque, but it says just getting to 2. And so for me, if we go back to my deal, this was me. I thought I was in red, but I was actually in purple because I only had one person involved in my deal the whole time, week over week. And so multi-threading is something that veteran salespeople do proactively. They mobilize their champion to go get more people involved, right? Because they know it's going to help win their deals. I'll pause here because there's usually some questions or maybe ideas around the data. And if not, Alex, I'll just keep going.
Looks like nothing's rolling in yet. I would imagine, though, just kind of Ron J asks how to do that. That is a good question, Ron. I have a feeling we're going to be diving into that. My comment here would be, I'd imagine this is all the more important now in today's current environment, right? Multi-threading into an account, you're going to get a lot more scrutiny with your deals in today's environment. So that's my one comment.
Absolutely, you're completely right. And we'll get to how in a second. We'll go over a little bit more data, and then we'll get into how to make it actionable. But the other thing that was interesting is, like, for my deal, I was like, hey, I'm at the top. I'm at the decision maker. I've got everything that I need. But the thing is, if you rely on one point of contact to win your deal, you're also only one person away from losing it. I'm a big Mandalorian fan, so I had to throw the Baby Yoda in here. A little something for the fans. But we don't only engage with buyers via meetings, right? We also email. We email. It's a huge part of it. So I wanted to take that same analysis, peel back the layer, and say, okay, now that we've got meetings covered, how does it work when it comes to emailing folks? And so if we remember, our number earlier was 6 to 10 influencers, according to Gartner. Well, slice it down the middle, you get about 8, and that's what we saw here. So for closed won opportunities, we saw about 8 and some change. We'll call it 8 folks who were involved in the deal, compared to closed lost opportunities, about 3 people involved, right? So it's 143% more engagement. And the reason that's really important is you start to think about, who are these people? You have your core champions, right? It could be 2, it could be 3 people that really matter for your deal. Maybe you're selling to a small operations team or a small marketing team. But there's a secondary layer to get a deal done, or a layer of influence. And that's folks like, procurement, legal, security, people you don't always need to meet with, depending on, if you're in an enterprise cycle, I'm sure you do meet with them directly. But for some of the mid and SMB deals, you don't always have to meet with those people, but you email documents and you correspond back and forth. Winning deals get to that second layer where losing deals don't. And you can see that as a reflection in the email engagement here.
Ben Smith is bringing up an interesting question. He's wondering if you have any data that shows how going wider sooner, multi-threading sooner, leads to losing faster, right? Which would actually be a good thing. If you can get the close lost faster, if there's no opportunity in the first place, maybe it's better to figure that out sooner by multi-threading into accounts. What do you think, Devin?
Yeah, I think it's a great angle, honestly. For this analysis, we didn't look at it that way. We kind of took a different spin on it. But yeah, I think you could also view that as, hey, if I get to more people, I'll learn faster. This isn't a deal. Hopefully you can get that done sooner with one person, but I totally understand there's so much nuance to sales and different types of sales cycles where you might need to get to 3 to 4 people to be like, you know what, guys, I just think we should walk away. I don't think this is worth it.
Got a really interesting question from Sebastian as well, relevant to what we're talking about right now. So if you try with your initial prospect, your champion, to start multi-threading into the account and you're not making any progress because they want all communication to go through them, how would you handle that situation without sabotaging that relationship with your champion?
That's awesome. I've got a short answer and then a long answer that will give you the full details. One is that's usually a really bad sign. Procurement officers will do the same thing, which is like you're working a deal, you've got all these relationships. When it comes to them, they're like, hey, don't talk to anyone else. This is me and you now. Don't talk. And what they're trying to do is actually isolate you from information. They don't want you to have any information because that's leeway. It will, while it's a different reasoning for this example, the non-procurement officer, it will still hinder you in the same way, which is as soon as you single thread, you're going to lose a lot of influence, right? There's a lot of questions. I'll give you a little bit of teaser. At the end of this, I've got something for folks that got a bunch of questions that you can use on calls. One of the ones I like to use, just to give like a short one, is like if Alex said, hey, I don't want you to talk to anybody else, I'd be like, hey, Alex, when I'm usually like selling Gong, going through a sales process, and we've done this for hundreds of clients at this point, I see it be a really ineffective way of evaluating the solution if we do it in a vacuum. Who would feel left out if they didn't see the demo early? So I didn't ask who Alex's boss is. I said, who would be left out? Because now Alex has to think, oh, well, who are these other people this is going to impact? And now we're starting that conversation on, hey, I'm not trying to go around you, but like, I'm trying to help you champion this best, right? There's a lot of ways we can like kind of stroke the ego and say, Alex, you're doing great, man. Like you're going to be my champion. You're going to look good, but it'll be unsuccessful if we don't involve other people.
Love that. Love that.
All right, let's keep going on here. Another point, I think we were actually kind of talking about this through some of the Q&A, but this is the typical, decision-making or influence pyramid, right? You have your decision makers at top and users at the bottom. And if you imagine there's like 6 to 10, again, we can kind of split it and call 8. You have one decision maker, handful of influencers, and a handful of stakeholders. Now, decision makers have shifted in terms of their role and responsibility in making decisions. Here's what I mean by that. A few years ago, my sales cycle I was telling you about with my VP would have worked perfectly. Top-down approach, you do what I say, we're buying Gong in this instance. The other version is, if we fast forward now, decision makers have enablers. They have built a team around them of influencers and stakeholders that they trust to go make these decisions. What do we need? What's the best vendor? What are the ins and outs of this process? And then DMs become approvers. Now it's up to you guys as salespeople and myself to figure out where are they approvers and where are they involved in the decision. But if you gave me the opportunity and said, hey, Devin, would you rather have one decision maker fully bought in or 7 people that report to her? I'm going to take the latter because I only need to convince one person with an army of 7 behind me versus trying to convince 7 with one decision maker. It's a totally different psychological approach to saying yes to you versus saying no. And so now we'll get to the fun part. How can I start to multi-thread this? So first of all, some of the value of this, and we kind of talked about it with the procurement officer, is multi-threading is deal insurance if your point of contact goes dark. If anyone on the line has ever, left closing day, left the office, gone home with a contract out there and you never know if it's going to get signed. Did you get the yes? Did you get the no? That awful pit in your stomach, which as you can hear from my voice, I have had happen to me before, right? And it's an awful feeling. And oftentimes it's because we don't have access to enough people, right? Maybe your champion just doesn't respond to you, but it's on the CFO's desk or it's at the VP level being reviewed. If you don't have direct access to these people, if you're not multi-threaded, you're again, back to little baby Yoda, you're one person away from losing your deal. You don't have access to, hey, it's on the CFO's desk. Hey, actually, we're not going to be able to move forward. And I'd rather get a bad answer and try to overcome that objection than just go home with absolutely nothing to chew on. And so this is why I call it deal insurance, right? You don't need it until you really need it. The next part, one of my personal favorites, is triangulating the truth. I'm going to say something that pisses off buyers everywhere. Bear with me, but they lie to us. Buyers lie to salespeople all the time. It's okay. It's not malicious. They very, very rarely do it on purpose, but they do. And that's because sometimes their truth simply isn't the truth when it comes to getting a deal done, right? And that could be things like, hey, Devin, don't worry. I'm going to get this deal done for you. I know the buying process. I know who to talk to, given I've been here for 6 weeks, right? Or people that think they're the decision maker because they own the budget, but then they realize there's something else going on that they actually can't move forward. And so what you want to do is decode reality. As salespeople, we need to figure out what the path to a deal is, not what we're being told all the time, because sometimes you can get conflicting messages. And that's where triangulating the truth comes in. So here's what you do. You get all of your champions, all of your influencers, anyone you've talked to, and you ask them the same questions. So you ask the same questions to multiple people, and one of 2 things are going to happen. One, all of the answers are going to line up. You're going to hear the same song. It goes here, then it goes here, then it goes CFO, and then the CEO signs. Over and over. You're going to hear the same tune. Great. Congrats. There's your buying process. Probably, 99% certainty minus any unknowns. Something, you're good to go. The other thing that could happen is you start getting conflicting answers. Someone saying the CFO doesn't care. Someone saying the CEO doesn't actually sign. Someone, you get these conflicting things, but that's okay too, because now you've surfaced the unknowns. You've surfaced these hurdles before they found you, right? If anyone's ever said, again, closing day, hey, sorry, our CFO needs to review this. He's in Hawaii. Won't be back for a week. There goes your deal. There goes your forecast and your commit, right? And so what you want to do is do this again proactively, get to the bottom of it, understand what these are. If anyone's familiar with Chris Voss, he has a concept called the black swan, so an unknown in your deal that will pop up. You need to go find that proactively, and by triangulating the truth, you can get ahead of that instead of getting stuck, again, end of month, end of quarter, without a heartbeat on your deal. All right, before we get into the next tip, Alex, anything any questions or comments?
We have a comment from Ruthie. Love that name.
Love it.
I find often that technical buyers often claim for whatever reason that they are the economic buyers. Yeah, they lie. They're lying.
Yeah. Yeah. It does happen. Right. And it's like, and again, like and mind you, none of this was calling people out. None of this is saying, I think you're wrong. Right. It's about asking people questions so that surfaces something that maybe isn't direct. Right. But it's like another way I've done this, Alex, is someone's like, I'm the economic buyer, and I'm talking to maybe, I don't know, a manager or director level, which I am too. I'm a budget holder, but I don't make the final call. Right. I got to get someone upstairs has to make sure we're spending money in the right way. And so what question I used to ask people was like, hey, if you, flip a similar, or maybe if you're an existing technology that they've purchased, and be like, hey, Alex, the last time when you guys bought Sales Hacker, can you walk me through that process? And I bet you'll start to hear, well, I was the one until someone got involved, or someone else who would, again, go back to that question, who would feel left out if they didn't know that we were about to move forward with Gong or with
start to learn about the real buying process that they've gone through in the past. Totally.
Exactly.
Love that.
And sometimes, again, they think they're the economic buyer. They're not necessarily like maliciously lying. They might actually think they're the one. You need to ask questions that surface uncertainty and like, oh, maybe there actually is another process, or there are other people we should loop in.
Right. We have a similar question to one that we've answered just recently from Andrew. How do you check in at various levels of stakeholders within the org without making your champion feel like you're going over their head or behind their back, etc.? It sounds like you try to keep them in power, right? Like you're not trying to go around them. You're trying to put them up on a pedestal and make sure that the deal that they're championing is actually successful, right? And the way to do that is to get buy-in from multiple levels in the org. Does that sound about right? Anything you'd add to that?
I agree. And I think the number one thing is we think of going around or above someone is when you don't tell them you're going to do it. If I tell you that I'm going to introduce the idea that we involve these other people. I'm going to explain to you why it's actually a really good idea and why it's in your best interest. Now, at that point, if someone still says no, there's something going on. We need to figure out what that is. But you have a hard decision to make, a big decision. Do I agree with this person and go down a path that's probably incorrect? Or do I cause a little friction in this deal and maybe break it early? Because there's nothing more frustrating than being stuck at a manager or director level for 2, 3, 4 months, and you just can't get to the right people. And then you've spun your wheels and you've wasted a whole bunch of time. So I always tell people is like, tell them you're going to go do it. Alex, let's do it together. You jump on the call with me. We'll go meet with Colin and get his input. And if they really push back, I'm like, hey, like I don't want to be that guy, but I've gone through this path before. It doesn't work out. And it's going to be a huge waste of your time. At that point, like if they're still like, you've thrown everything at them and they're still just like, I'm not going to introduce you, I wouldn't say go over them, but you need to make the call. Like, is it worth going over and continuing the deal or breaking it? Or again, I guess the third option is, continue on with your champion, knowing you're probably stuck below the power line. It's a tough one though. It is tough. I will not pretend like it is not it can cause some awkwardness, right? Some friction. All right.
Peter has an interesting comment.
The longest check. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry about that. No. Peter Fillmore, interesting comment to the question that we just posed. One trick to help avoid appearance of going around someone is to propose to help the champion prepare an internal proposal. Is that something you've done in the past?
Yeah, exactly. Like, let's work on this together so we can present it together.
Right.
It's very rare that you find, if you word it the right way, like, we're going to do this so you look good and it's in your best benefit, that people push back on that because everyone wants to look good and everyone will take your help. Yeah, that's a good one. Cool. So multi-threading is the longest one for today. So if you're feeling like time, we're at 11:30. The next few we're actually going to fly through. So the next one is team selling. Now, team selling is the exact opposite of multi-threading. Multi-threading is looking at how many buyers are involved. We wanted to see if it applies the same for sellers, if more sellers are involved. So it's involving multiple team members, ideally across departments, working together to help close a deal. Now, you're probably familiar with this if you've ever looped your VP, your CEO in on a call, right? Trying to get that authority in there. It works, right? We know it works. We've never seen numbers, but there's a reason we all do it. The data says the same thing, and it's a huge leap. So you're 258% more likely to win a deal, according to our data, than if you flew solo. It's a huge number, right? It's basically saying you're way better off. You're way better off. And you want to look into it a little bit more. If we lean back on influence, right? If you think of a relationship, if it's just Devin selling to multiple people versus Devin and 4 gongsters, from different levels, maybe a CEO, maybe just a manager, maybe anyone in between, you're building a better bond. You're having more influence. It's not just what Devin can provide, but also what, John and Jane can provide as well. And so what modern sellers and go-to-market teams are doing is they align the uncertainty of their buyer, the uncertainty that their buyers have with the buyer's journey. Because let's face it, once you hit about 10 salespeople, you can't get your VP on every call. Your CEO can't make it, right? Mine's in Israel right now. He's probably getting ready. Well, he never sleeps, but you know what I mean? He's not available to get on all the calls. And so a couple examples that you can do are, what are the uncertainty on the left? Things like the exact details around the onboarding process. Not that we'll have a dedicated CSM, not that we'll be taken care of, but what specifically goes into those milestones, right? Go either grab your customer success leader that can speak to it with real authority, or go grab the CSM that will be on their account. I've had a lot of success with that too. Here's Matt. He's going to be your CSM from day one. He's the only CSM you're going to have. He has 30 minutes blocked aside. You can ask him any and all questions.
It's almost like you're giving him like a little taste of what they're going to get, right? If you sign this deal, you get to work with these guys, these rock stars. Yeah.
And we're willing to give resources early. Like, we're showing good faith, right? We're not waiting for you to sign and promising. We'll show it to you early. A couple other examples, despite, I don't know, it's crazy, but IT and security people don't want to hear security related questions from salespeople, right? Trust me, it takes 5 minutes. Don't worry about Salesforce. Those are all red warning signs. To us salespeople, we think we're making it easy. Those are red flags, right? So grab your IT, grab your security lead, get your general counsel in there. And the reason that it works, and you just touched on it, Alex, is one, your time investment builds trust. Here is our team. Here's our resources. Have them early. 2, here's our team. Here are our experts, right? Our expert in our CISO. Here's our VP of sales who's been at the company for 3 years and selling for 10, or your evangelist if you have one at your company. Bring your experts in to build credibility around your brand and offering. And then the third one gives you a competitive edge. If you're selling against me in my story, in the deal in my story, yeah, Devin might be a great sales rep, but we've met the CEO, a sales rep, a manager, CS, and their sales leader. We know their company really well. We trust them more. They have better influence. All right. The last one for today, one that you probably haven't heard of, email velocity. Now, email velocity came from a different question. We got to this one a little differently when we were trying to break it apart. And what I really wanted to know is, how do I know if my buyer is going to sign? How do you know? Now you're probably thinking, they'll tell me, right? They'll tell me they're going to sign. We all know that doesn't always happen, at least not on time, right? And so you have a bunch of options. You can trust your gut, which I think is what most of us do now, right? Based on experience, what we've been told. If you're in leadership, you can ask your rep, tap them on the shoulder, or Slack them these days. You can check your CRM, right? You've got options, but none of them are really as objective as what I'm going to show you here. And so what we really wanted to understand is, what are the signs of winning deals and if they're going to sign? And what we came up with was email velocity. Now, email velocity is really simple. It is the number of emails exchanged back and forth from a sales rep to a buyer over the course of a week. Right? So if you think of deal velocity is how fast we can get deals done, email velocity is how much engagement can we get in a week. And here's what we found. More emails equal more deals, but it is causation, it is correlation. I want to make that super clear before we get into it. This is a correlation. So if you look at a winning deal versus a losing deal, winning deals have 8 emails exchanged back and forth. Ironically, that same number, right? That 6 to 10 influencers, that 8 number feels really healthy in these reports. And so what you're looking at is, and then on the left side, you have my deal, my sad story of about 2 emails back and forth. Hey, I'm not going to make the meeting. Sounds great. I'll see you next week. 2 emails, done. That's not influence. Right? So this is how you can start to see what a good, what does a healthy deal look like versus what a non-healthy deal looks like, right? And you can get ahead of this. This doesn't mean all is lost. You can start to find ways to engage. But if you're forecasting your deals or you're just looking at your pipeline, this is how you can get a quick glance at what's hot and what's not.
That makes total sense too, right? I mean, if you're multi-threading, if you're team selling, you're going to be emailing so much more frequently than if you're just single-threaded with an individual seller, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And we've all
Yeah.
felt it, right? You know, when your inbox is blowing up and it's like last minute things are, well, last minute things will be on the next slide, but yeah, you're getting like, you know, hey, can we meet on Friday? Hey, I want to follow up on that case study. You feel it, right? Just like me and Alex started texting after this, just like you guys text with all your friends, right? You know, your close friends, you text them more. People you're not so close with, you don't text as much. It's pretty simple. Now, we wanted to get even more specific and say, okay, this is good for the whole deal, but what about closing week? How do we know if a deal is going to sign this week? So we dove into a little bit more, and this is the final week. It actually heats up. Email velocity increases when a deal is about to close versus crickets on the bottom, right? Those things that are just tapered out and they just don't close. They don't come in. And if you think about it, I got ahead of myself, but it's kind of those like, you know, hey, we're going to sign on Friday. Maybe you've established that, but you got a last minute, hey, CFO needs net 45, not net 30. Hey, actually, one person has a quick question. Can we, jump on a 5-minute call, something like that? Those are actually good signs. A lot of salespeople think that it's, objections last minute are bad. They're actually the last bit of uncertainty leaving their mind frame as they're like, hey, we're going to move forward with this, but we just have these last little things we want to be certain of. All right, that was it for the data. We'll go into a really quick recap before I give something away for you guys. I know you've been asking for some how-tos. So really quickly, the key to effective deal execution is winning influence within your buyers. And you do so with multi-threading, team selling, and email velocity. Now, if you've gotten to this point, you're probably committed to adding some of the science to your sales approach. This is probably still very interesting to you. It's closing week. You're wondering how you can give yourself an upper hand. I've got something for you. I've got a multi-threading playbook. It's yours for free. All you have to do is message me and send it on LinkedIn. I'll know exactly what you mean. Hopefully, the only people telling me to just send it blindly. If you got the URL, if you got the little QR code, you know how to use it. You can find my profile there. But here's what's included. So I mentioned earlier that I started the mid-market team with one of my colleagues, Alex, and our goal was to start to go up market, get larger deals, larger companies that we're selling to. And so what this multi-threading playbook has is questions you can use on calls. It has all of the data that we just talked about and email templates that you can start to use. And the whole point is to unlock who is in the buying circle and how can we get them as engaged as possible in your deal. So if you're interested in that, you want to add multi-threading to your sales approach, find me. My name is Devin Reed. Message send it, and I will send it to you ungated. You'll just get the PDF directly.
Boom. Terry says this is going to be super helpful for training his team. So,
awesome.
Bang.
Yeah.
There you go, Terry.
Perfect. You can use it for forecasting this week. Look, do I have 3 people involved? Do I have 8 people involved? It'll start to give you a feel. And again, it's not like it's an on-off switch. Like, hey, if I don't fall into these categories, it just shows you where to focus, right? Like, go get more people involved in this account, get some more engagement going in the other one. And then I'll leave this up for a second. I know we've got about 20 minutes. We can keep them if there's questions, Alex, but happy to field any questions.
Yeah. I mean, if you guys have any questions on multi-threading, team selling, how he's calculating email velocity, throw them in the Q&A. We'll answer them live. Megan Lane, great info to give to leadership in regards to prospecting sales process. Thank you, Megan. We're glad you found it valuable.
Awesome.
We have a question from Terry Davis. Is there a sweet spot for the number of people on your selling team, like there is on the buying team, that 6 to 8 number?
That's a great question. This was a pretty high level report we did about a year ago. It's a great question. I do want to double down and see kind of like the multi-threading, not just when, but who and how. So yeah, we'll expect to see more of that in the next couple of months as we do more research, which is a good point. Real quick, I'll do a shameless plug. If you like the sales, science of sales approach, follow us on LinkedIn. We release one of these about once a month, maybe 2 a month, just sharing, multi-threading reports, email velocity. And last week we even did the best email CTA for a cold email. What gets you the best response and the best likelihood for a booked meeting?
Love it.
Any other questions, Alex?
What do you think about team selling with 2 AEs?
I think it's fine. I think the point of team selling, and again, like we didn't get into like like the hierarchy, right? Like a CEO versus another rep. But I think what it's doing is two of the other things, which is still showing resources, and it still provides another angle, right? Another angle of clarity, another perception that can help people get there. What I found, and again, this is anecdotally in my experience, is sometimes just getting a non-sales person with like a sales title helps kind of lower their guard, right? Like if you folks ever use like a sales engineer or someone like that, a CSM sometimes to the same, they kind of know like, hey, the MO of this person isn't getting the deal done. They're here to provide insights and experience or knowledge, answer questions. It's a bit more, the word soothing comes to mind in terms of like they're thinking through this, right? Like they're getting another perspective that doesn't feel like salesy.
You bring in like an impartial party to the deal. Yeah.
Yeah. Great word. Great. Impartial is a great word to use it.
Megan Lane is wondering, you may have data on this from the Gong platform, but even if you don't, like anecdotally, have you seen CFOs being more involved in this environment in your opportunities at Gong? Megan, yeah. It sounds like maybe she's seeing more CFO financial folks being involved in deals.
Absolutely. Forgive the plug. I've written a lot about this. I'm not just trying to send you guys to other more content, but I think you'll find it really interesting. There's a post I did 2 weeks ago. You can find on my profile. It's or a couple months ago now, was how to secure budget in the age of COVID-19. And what I did is I sat down with Gong CFO, who used to be the CFO at Pure Storage, publicly traded company, and sat down with them and was like, hey, how has our buying process changed? And how is your other CFO friends that you hang out with in other companies, like what are they telling you? So if you want the full thing, you jump over there and read it. But in short, what he said was, yeah, everything is hitting the CFO's desk. Every renewal, every new purchase. And I can confirm this as I mentioned, I'm a budget holder that needs approval. And I had a renewal that we've done for 2 years, needs to hit the CFO's desk, needs to review everything, right? We're buying something new with a slight fraction of an uptick of cost. CFO wants to get the full rundown. And the reason is, as the resources have become more scarce, right, as the economic downshift that we're all experiencing, they're even more, they want more visibility. They want to see every dollar going in and going out. And so this is anecdotally, we don't have anything yet at a macro level, but we are definitely seeing that CFOs are being more involved. And we have some resources around that to help you frame your offering in a way that resonates with CFOs. So it's covering some of the things that they care about, like visibility, work from home, productivity, and agility to make decisions.
Love it. Cameron wants to know if you have any data. Maybe you've already produced some content around this on text messaging or social selling, specifically like LinkedIn messaging.
Yes. So the data we have is always from the Gong platform. So as soon as we can get a way to capture LinkedIn messaging and texting, I'll be the first to report on it. So no data. I say go for texting. I am super pro texting. I will say the caveat is not cold texting. I don't think I don't know. I think there's a barrier personal. That hasn't been done. Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like it's like, don't text me if you don't know me. But once you know me, go ahead and text me, right? There's just like a little level of like, we need to cross that barrier and then it's all good. Yeah, I think for sure, if you're closing a deal this week and you're not texting someone in that account, I would find a way to do that. Cause I think it's a good, you get really good candid feedback on the text.
Awesome. I think that covered all the Q&A. We're getting a lot of thank yous. Voss, Sweet. Many thanks for sharing your insights and great tips. Terry is going to train his entire team. Yes, Terry, this is recorded. We'll send you the recording and the deck within about 24 hours after the webinar. More thank yous. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We hope this was valuable. Devin, it was great to have you on, as usual. Thank you for sharing all these insights. We hope to have you on again soon.
Absolutely, man. Always a pleasure hanging out with you and the Sales Hacker crew. Thanks, everyone who showed up, and hope you have a successful closing week.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.